German sociologist Max Weber pioneered the study of bureaucracy. According to Weber, a bureaucracy can be recognized by three features: a strict hierarchical structure, rigid division of labor, and formal chains of authority. These features result in four fundamental characteristics: specialized expertise, certainty, continuity, and unity. Expertise gives the bureaucracy authority to oversee a specific set of functions. Certainty is bound in the idea of rule-making and rule following, and following standard procedures based on tested assumptions. Continuity is ensured through commitment to those procedures and rules which supersede the desires or ideas of individual employees. Unity is achieved through commitment of all members of the organization to its goals and processes. Bureaucracy, in this view, is a rational actor that aims to provide informed decision-making following reliable procedures. In practice, bureaucracy can appear to outsiders to be slow, rule-bound, frustrating, and reluctant to change. Critics characterize bureaucratic procedure not as a rational following of rules, but as entangling swirls of red tape. Rather than helpers, bureaucrats are often seen as hostile to citizens' needs. Political scientists point out that some executive branch employees are part of a street-level bureaucracy, which refers to government workers who interact directly with the public. Rather than being in distant offices in Washington, D.C. or other federal locations, these workers are found in communities throughout the country, serving as police officers, teachers, and social workers. While many of these street-level bureaucrats are employed by local or state governments, some are federal employees. Examples are postal workers and workers in local Social Security offices. In theory, the federal bureaucracy is a neutral instrument of the executive branch that implements or carries out the laws passed by Congress. In practice, federal legislation usually provides only a sketch map or scaffolding for government policy. Typically, laws passed by Congress are enabling legislation that delegate authority to executive agencies to work out the details of how a law is to be implemented. Implementation is the process of putting a decision, plan, law, or regulation into effect. This means that bureaucrats engage in a highly political process in which they enjoy a substantial degree of autonomy. This process typically involves the drafting and subsequent modification of rules and regulations. Proposed regulations are published in the Federal Register, the daily journal of the federal government, and left open for public comment for a period of time. When they are finalized, the regulations are republished. It might seem that the bureaucracy's power in the shaping of policy is out of proportion with what was intended, particularly since bureaucrats are not elected officials. However, several mechanisms operate to control the bureaucracy and limit its power. These forces resemble the checks and balances found in the Constitution that restrain the power of the different branches of government. First, a series of laws imposes significant constraints on the powers and operations of bureaucratic agencies. Intended to promote transparency in how the government conducts business, Congress has passed the following laws. 1. The Freedom of Information Act, passed in 1966, grants citizens access to all government records except those with information about military or intelligence activities, trade secrets, and personal records. 2. The National Environmental Policy Act, passed in 1969, requires agencies to submit an environmental impact statement on any action affecting the environment. 3. The Privacy Act of 1974 requires agencies to keep government files about private citizens confidential. 4. The Government in the Sunshine Act, passed in 1976, mandates that all government agency meetings be open to the public, with the exception of meetings that cover military information or trade secrets. Besides specific legislation, congressional constraints also include the processes of authorization and appropriation of funds for executive branch agencies. Congressional oversight power, which includes budgetary controls, personnel controls, special investigations, and public hearings, all influence bureaucratic discretion and policy making. Congressional committees and their staffs typically amass a significant amount of expertise in specific subject areas. Thus, an individual committee of the Senate or the House of Representatives may function as an effective monitoring force over the activities of an agency in the bureaucracy. In addition, the White House may prove effective in monitoring the bureaucracy and affecting the bureaucratic policymaking process. Particularly important in this instance is the prestige and persuasive power of the president. While the president needs cooperation from the bureaucracy, the various agencies also need presidential support. Presidential leadership in setting the government budget, for instance, can affect agency funding. In addition, policy decisions can promote or de-emphasize the agency's work. The judicial branch of government may also intervene to limit or affirm bureaucratic powers through judicial review. For example, in Red Line Broadcasting versus the FCC in 1969, the Supreme Court ruled that the fairness doctrine of the Federal Communications Commission, requiring a fair and balanced discussion of public issues by broadcasters, was constitutional and consistent with the First Amendment. Nearly 20 years later, the FCC, composed at the time of 4 commissioners appointed by conservative Republicans Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan, revoked the doctrine. Last, interest groups often influence bureaucratic policymaking. Notably, bureaucratic powers are often the product of an iron triangle, or the interconnected policymaking relationship of congressional committees, the bureaucracy, and interest groups. These alliances suggest a mutually beneficial relationship between the 3 legs of the triangle. Congress receives electoral support from interest groups, while the bureaucratic agency receives funding and political support from Congress. In turn, interest groups receive low regulation and special favors from the bureaucracy. Thus, it is generally to an interest group's advantage to lobby both federal agencies and Congress in pursuit of its goals.